welcome to KIRKS Toolbox webinar. We are braking without compromise. We want to start by introducing our panelists, Bob Kirkman, co-president of KIRKS, and Mark Simpson, MGM Brakes Regional Sales Manager. I'm Linda Kleist, your webinar host, and we have Abby Thompson on technical. If you have any issues, please just put it in the chat and we'll take care of it. And Bob and Mark want to answer your questions at the end. We will have a Q&A. So please put your questions in the chat as well, and we'll get to those at the end. And we are going to hand it over now to our speaker, Mark. We're looking forward to learning about braking without compromise.
Thank you, Linda. Again, I'm Mark Simpson, and I'm the Great Lakes Regional Sales Manager for MGM Brakes. I've been with the company for just over 10 years now, and I've been in the heavy-duty industry for almost 30 years. Today's webinar, I'm going to talk about the importance of brake chambers within the braking process of air brake vehicles, like transit, coach, charter, and tour buses. So the first statement I need everyone to fully grab onto is the most important function on any commercial vehicle is the ability to stop. I know some of you listening are always looking to cut costs. Braking is not the area of a vehicle you should be looking to do that with. Yes, you can get quotes from dealers and distributors for a specific brand to find your best price and service provider, but stay away from what I call price point components that may be the same fit and form, but they will not function or perform to industry standards. So first, I want to get into the challenge of the heavy-duty braking. I'll go over the types of foundation brakes, the role of brake chambers, and common failures that you'll see when it comes to brake chambers. So first off, we got, first type of foundation brake is the hydraulic, primarily used on lighter duty vehicles, including some smaller transit van style vehicles, and in some states, school buses. Brake chambers are not used on this style of braking system, so we won't talk about that anymore within this presentation. The next one is the S-cam brakes. They're the most popular foundation brake on heavy-duty commercial vehicles at this time. They are also known as drum brakes. And finally, we've got the air disc brakes. Are the most popular foundation brake for the transit applications and are being spec'd and used on more and more heavy-duty vehicles. This is due to increased pressure to decrease stopping distances. Heavy-duty vehicle manufacturers are moving towards being this being the standard, like the transit industry did many years ago. All right, so what is the brake chamber's role in the brake systems? A brake chamber is what begins the braking process by converting air pressure to mechanical force. A properly functioning brake chamber is a must to begin the braking process. Braking is not the area of the vehicle that you want to go with the cheapest product because, again, the most important function of any vehicle is the ability to stop safely. This little diagram on this slide kind of explains it a little bit. And that you see that hose coming into the back of that brake chamber, then that is converting it into mechanical force with that push rod that would slide in and out to engage the rest of the braking system with the S-cam in the S-cam system. All right, so common failures. I want to show some pictures of chamber failures. I want to note that none of these failures were MGM failures, but were results of testing competitor products in our engineering center. These pictures are for representation only. Okay, so first of all, probably the most common failure is a broken power spring or parking spring on brake chambers. And when this happens, and with a double diaphragm chamber, a lot of times it'll puncture the diaphragm, which will cause air loss and then locking the vehicle up on the side of the road. With piston style, you don't see your brakes don't lock up, but again, you're not going to have all the parking brake or emergency brake functions that's needed. The second popular, or not popular, but most common failure would be a ruptured diaphragm. A lot of times the piston, the plate in the push rod plate inside wears the diaphragm's out, and once that gets a hole again, you lose the air pressure in a brake chamber. Third one is center seal leaks. We'll go over some of the common issues with center seals later in the presentation. Again, excessive corrosion will cause a lot of failures, and bent and broken components.
Oh,
All right, so now that I've covered the role,
Mark,
yes,
can you go back to that slide again?
yes.
Just because I have the controls, I get to ask a question for the Q&A section. Are there signs or symptoms? Are you going to talk about that people will? I mean, some of these look dastardly. That last one, bent or broken components, or is it just the disaster happens?
Yeah, that last one, that's a caging plate. That is very, very uncommon. You won't see that a lot, but there's other components that will get bent and make the chamber not function properly. Some of the signs you may see is, and it may or may not be the cause of the brake chamber, is brake pads hanging up, or dragging brakes because the push rod isn't retracting far enough in the chamber. But some of these other failures, no, you won't know until it happens. And like that broken power spring up there, those springs, that power spring that's broken half up there. When you put those two together and you're holding in real life, that's like the size of a small strut spring on light duty cars. And when it's under pressure and it's completely compressed, if it was to let loose, it's moving at 750 miles an hour. It could do some major damage or severely hurt somebody.
Wow.
That's one of the reasons why MGM came up with a tamper resistant seal, which I will talk about later in the presentation. But yeah, a lot of these failures, you're not going to know until it happens, and then But if you're seeing excessive corrosion like this, guess what? I might, if I'm a technician, I might say, it's time to change this before we have a failure.
Mm-hmm. Good.
No,
Thank you.
no problem. All right, so now that I've covered the role and common failures of brake chambers, I want to talk a bit about MGM's product line and our company itself. So first of all, we'll talk about the leadership, then get into the overview of MGM brake chambers, and finally some unique design features that MGM has developed over the years. So first off, MGM invented the brake chamber in 1956 and has added and improved our line for 69 years now. MGM is a leader in the brake chamber market, making more styles and sizes of chambers than all the other manufacturers combined. We continue to manufacture our products in the USA and primarily use North American sourced components. Remember, MGM also makes wedge brake chambers, remote mounts chambers, and the e-stroke electronic brake monitoring system used primarily in the transit industry. MGM doesn't believe in a one-size universal application approach. We have many options for the different size chambers we produce, which depends on the vocation they're being used in. All right, so MGM's flagship brake chamber is the TR series. The key components used on this series will be the platform MGM builds on with some of our other upgraded products I'll be sharing with you shortly. But again, that TR actually stands for tamper resistant. We really made a name for ourselves when MGM invented the tamper resistant brake chamber. When you're looking at that chamber and you see the aluminum center section, that first like seal where it turns black for the power spring head, back in the original days, they would there was another clamp band there. Okay, and I was telling you earlier about that power spring when it compresses. If it let loose, it would be moving at 750 miles an hour, and there would be times where a new technician, a very green technician, would loosen the bolts, loosen the clamp band on the wrong side of the chamber, and that power spring would let loose. And again, that's very dangerous. A lot of people got hurt over the years. And so MGM came up with that rollover seal design so that you can't service the power spring side of a brake chamber. And that's where we came up with the TR series. MGM actually, it's not only a patent that we had, but we licensed the rest of the industry so that the other brake chamber manufacturers actually could use this technology because it was a safety related item, as our ownership felt. So yeah, we charge a minimal fee to the other manufacturers to use that technology, and most used it and decide to pay for that to be able to use that technology.
That's pretty impressive. That's generous. And
yes, the owner of MGM, Ron Parker, he's a very safety conscious person, and that's why we won't ever cheapen our products just to try to compete with some of these overseas and price point chambers that are out in the market.
And Mark, back in the day, I've seen when people were rebuilding them, I've seen those springs let loose, and it will shock you.
Oh yeah,
Believe me.
I've seen
That's
holes in
That's
ceilings.
something you want to mess with.
Exactly. So to get into this product a little bit more, we have that tamper resistant design. Then we have MGM uses the heavy duty gauge steel on our non-pressure chamber. That's that mounting side of the chamber where the mounting bolts are. We have a positive alignment system with corrosion fighter technology, 360-degree aluminum center, epoxy coated head and the MPC to help with corrosion. And then we have a triple lip seal, which I like to say no O-rings. And again, we'll talk about some of these features in a little bit. So here are the MGM technology improved components that make us the best chamber in the industry. First off, we have the composite spring guide, the center hole diaphragm, a nitrile center seal with nylon bushings, the stone shield to keep debris from getting into the service side of the chamber, and the sealed breather tube to help seal off that power spring side. That's not on all models. That's on some of our upgraded models. And then nylon reinforced diaphragms to help with so that they don't rupture as easily. And again, that heavy duty gauge steel for the mounting MPC chamber. So, first let's get into the MGM exclusive corrosion fighter technology. A quick refresher of 8th grade science class: when metal on metal movement is combined with moisture, it causes electrolysis. Electrolysis is a chemical reaction that will cause the acceleration of rust if it has already started. MGM engineers came up with an idea to use a composite spring guide to eliminate electrolysis within the brake chamber by putting it between the steel head and the spring. MGM's warranty claims were reduced significantly due to this patented idea, since broken power springs, like I said, are the #1 cause of brake chamber failures in the industry. So that's part of our corrosion fighter technology, along with the top of the line powder coating, epoxy coatings that we use, and the high grade aluminum center housing. So next we have the MGM also the first and patented the center hole diaphragm alignment feature. This maintains the component alignment within the brake chamber, so actually keeping the spring and the diaphragm and the piston plate inside that diaphragm all in alignment, so that it's not skewed to one side or the other, or sliding around inside that head, which would scratch up that spring, which then would lead to the start of corrosion. It eliminates the effects of severe vibration. And again, it reduces the power spring stress because again, it's all in alignment. It's not skewed to one side, which would put more pressure on that power spring. It also reduces coil clash. For those of you that don't know what I mean by coil clash, when you compress a spring where each of those levels of the spring would meet or maybe scratch on each other, again causing more the start of corrosion. And then it also increases the center seal life of the brake chamber because again that rod, piston plate rod isn't shifted to one side or another, putting more pressure on that center seal. So now talking about center seals, that's another exclusive MGM of our enhanced components. The competition, all of our competitors use O-rings as their center seal. When you have a metal rod moving back and forth over an O-ring, you'll eventually get a flat spot, which causes a leak. Okay, so a couple competitors start using multiple O-rings, but testing just showed that both seals get the flat spots and still leak over time. MGM uses a multi-lipped pressure activated seal. So it keeps the lubrication of that seal in between those pressure pressure lips. And again, it's an MGM exclusive. It's molded from specially formulated low temperature resistant rubber, providing long-term protection against air leaks. Nylon guides eliminate metal-to-metal contact and premature failure in this critical area. MGM has very few center seal leak problems compared to our competitors.
I did not realize how many patented parts. I've got this list here. So the center seal, center hole diaphragm, the tamper resistant.
Yep.
I wish I was around though when you guys named the tamper resistant instead of just TR. Very impressive.
Thank
So,
you.
yeah.
But yeah, MGM, I mean, we've always been a leader in the industry, and a lot of these patents have run out. So some of our competitors, like the center hole diaphragm, some of our competitors are using that technology now because the patent ran out. And of course, the tamper resistant design that's run out many years ago, but it was something that our owner felt was a safety related item, so he encouraged the use of it during the patent.
Yeah. Well, it definitely highlights the innovation and dedication to solving the issues by engineering solutions.
That's exactly what it is. MGM again. That's why we're still trying to come up with new ways for brake chambers to last longer. Where a lot of our competitors are looking to try to be more cost conscious and compete with some of the price point chambers that are in the market. And that's why doing a webinar like this is very helpful for the industry because a lot of technicians or newer technicians weren't around that saw that the quality really does matter when it comes to brake chambers, and you really do get what you pay for with this product. So now let's get into the MGM's upgraded chambers. So both of the chambers listed on this slide have all the benefits of our flagship TR series. I spoke about earlier. The TRT adds the breather tube, which allows the air to exhaust out the bottom MPC and keeps contaminants out of the power spring side of the chamber. So I guess to clarify that a little bit more, that power spring that we showed broke in half earlier and is the most common chamber failure. The key is keeping that spring in pristine condition. Okay, you don't want rust to get started on the power spring because it's under so much pressure most of the time while the vehicles are driving. That spring is compressed, and it's under a lot of pressure. And that's why it would, rust starts, and once it gets that spring gets 2 weeks, it'll snap in half, and then you don't have the emergency braking power for that chamber that for you, or the parking brake. It's a dual function side of the chamber. So that's very key. So what that does is there's no vent holes in the top of that head. It exhausts the air out of that side of the chamber down through that tube and out through the service side, so that you keep out road debris, the contaminants that might get in there and nick up that power spring, and so forth. Okay. Then we move on up to the TRTS brake chamber, which that's a tamper resistant with the tube, and the S stands for severe service. Okay. So what that adds is it is completely epoxy coated inside and out. We This is the chamber that I would highly recommend for like a salt truck up here in the north. That's going to see just nonstop abuse from a corrosive environment, and so this again, that's just an added feature that we have for the TRTS. Okay, now we have the new LTS brake chamber, and the LTS brake chamber. This chamber includes all the additional technology MGM has developed in the more recent years. It has a corrosion-resistant aluminum power spring head, and of course the center case as well is the heavy gauge aluminum. It is mounted to our heavy duty gauge MPC for mounting strength. It has the corrosion fighter technology we talked about. The custom center seal and center hole diaphragm alignment technology packed into it. Then MGM decided to add an integral release bolt with a dual threaded design, like we use on our piston style chamber, to seal the chamber against outside contaminants. This powerhouse is the latest and greatest for handling key vocational markets like concrete mixers, oil tankers, other acid and corrosive environment vehicles, including SCAM equipped buses. So this chamber is probably one of the best chambers in the market, with all the latest technology built right into it. Finally, we're going to get into, I'm going to go into our showcase, another MGM premium chair called the J Series, or our piston style chamber. It's a completely unique chamber design utilizing a piston on the power spring side. So there's no diaphragm on that power spring side of the chamber. That's why I call this the no road call chamber, because with a double diaphragm, if the power spring would break, and it would then eventually puncture a hole in the rubber diaphragm, causing you to lose all the air, and then you'd be locked up on the side of the road, because that parking brake would, the rest of the parking brakes would engage, I should say, emergency brakes. With this design, that power spring might break inside there, so that one brake chamber, you might not have a parking or emergency brake function in it, but the rest of the wheels will still have theirs, so it'll still function, and you can get it back to the shop to do the replacement of the chamber instead of having a road call, which will save hundreds of dollars alone. So that piston design also allows for a larger parking spring inside that unit, which gives you more brake output force. It also has that sealed tube design, again, sealing off the chamber, the parking brake side of the chamber. And then it also has that conveniently built-in dual-threaded manual release bolt for when you do have to cage the chamber for replacements. It just makes replacements a lot easier. This chamber is widely used in the transit industry, coming standard on New Flyer, Gillig, and other buses. All right, so now I've gone over the MGM product line. Let's get into brake chamber standards, the industry trends, and ultimately the true value of selecting an MGM brake chamber as your choice for brake chamber replacements. So we'll kind of go over the SAM MGM brake standards, industry trends, and then again, the true value of selecting MGM. So this slide is actually the MGM versus SAE J1469 test standards. And most buyers, fleet managers, and technicians don't know that there's actually a quality standard for brake chambers. Many years ago, the Society of Automotive Engineers and brake chamber manufacturers got together and came up with an acceptable quality standard for brake chambers. This chart shows tests that are included in that standard, but I want you to make note that MGM standard is either the same or higher than the SAE standard. This means that even if another brake chamber manufacturer meets the SAE standard, that they might not meet the higher standard that MGM chambers must meet. I also want you to note that meeting the standard is not a law, and testing that MGM has conducted has concluded that many manufacturers' brake chambers are not even meeting SAE standards, which is the lower standard.
Okay, that's a little frightening.
It is. And a good story we have, my former boss before he retired, he was doing some presentations of some testing that we did in the industry with industry experts, and a lot of the price point chamber people out there that were sourcing these price point chambers were in attendance. And that was one of the things that they all came about. You would think they were upset that he was presenting that information, but towards the end of the presentation, they all got talking and said, why isn't this a law? Because they all know that they're going to continue selling their less quality chambers, because they're all competing against each other, and if they have to have it. So they were all like under the same kind of opinion that there should be that law that you must meet those standards, and because that would force everyone to provide a better chamber. But until the government makes some type of a law like that, that's just not going to be the case. So
Amazing.
yeah, it was. So I know the last slide was a bit of an eye chart, so I wanted to go over some of the key testing highlights that all MGM chambers need to pass. MGM chambers are tested frequently in our engineering test lab to make sure manufacturing standards are consistent. So one of them is our service durability testing. We'll pull, do 1 million cycles at 95 psi application pressure on our chambers just to make sure that they hold up. Our spring durability testing, that power spring, we take test springs out of just about every batch we get from our supplier, and they have to go through 250,000 total cycles at 115 psi. If one chamber breaks, they send back the rest of the batch to the manufacturer and will not accept them. Corrosion testing, they stay in a tank for 3 weeks or a little over 500 hours in a salt fog exposure. And then after that, they do a post-corrosion spring side cycle to 125,000 cycles. Okay. And again, it's just something that we want our products to hold up to. Burst testing at 300 PSI minimum, holding for 15 seconds. Vibration testing, 50,000 vibration cycles at a resonant frequency of 10. Actually, I don't know what the G input is, 10 G input. And other tests, spring force output, we hold off and release pressures, ambient leak checks, low temperature leak checks, and low temperature operation as well. So
Impressive quality control.
it is. And if any of the customers are in the Charlotte area and want to visit our headquarters, they could contact them, and they would be happy to show them around a little bit. So, all right. So now I've gone over the quality standards that brake chambers should meet. I'm going to go over some trends related to air brakes. And one of them is the preference for welded yoke chambers is growing. And that's on the SCAM systems, of course. More and more technicians and fleet managers are realizing that they have less issues with welded yoke chambers compared to having a technician potentially cut a push rod to the wrong length, which happens all the time. It also saves on labor, time, and cost. With the shortage of technicians, it is worth spending a little bit more on a part if it can be free up the technician to get on another job. Okay. So yeah, safety, labor savings, and largest offering of welded yokes. MGM does have the largest offering of welded yokes. Fleets are moving away from the SKM to air disc. Again, safety is a big reason. Primarily, it's because of the reduced stopping distance requirements from the government. It is also reducing maintenance costs in a lot of applications. And then there's no push rods to cut incorrectly on the air disc system because it bolts right up to the caliper. So again, it makes changing chambers a lot easier, lower maintenance costs, and so forth. And then finally, fleets are returning to premium brake chambers to reduce maintenance costs as well. I think you might be hearing kind of a similar story there, reducing maintenance costs. So there's a lot of ways to reduce maintenance costs without buying just cheap products that don't meet quality standards. So again, it's the short-term versus long-term profitability of buying a product. Okay, just because it costs less, I guess how you can put it is the pay now or pay more later for your fleet mentality. The improved technology again will make that chamber last longer, and MGM and other premium chambers, they have longer warranty periods. Okay, so if you're buying a price point chamber, it might last only a year or two, where MGMs, especially in the transit industry, you're getting a 5-year warranty on those piston brake chambers. So if they don't last 5 years, you turn it in, and most likely you're going to get a free chamber. If it fails within that 5-year warranty period. And with MGM, it's just a better supply due to USA-based manufacturing and North American source components. Especially during the COVID timeframe, when everybody was having these long back orders and all that kind of stuff, MGM had very little of that, and it actually wasn't until almost after COVID was done, we started having a little bit of a supply issue with some very small components that happened to be something we got, from overseas, or their materials were coming in from overseas that we had a few issues where we had a couple week lead time, which is unheard of for MGM, and that was kind of one of the only few issues we had. So that was very impressive in my eyes, at least. All right, so the revalue of a chamber, and these are 3 key takeaways I want you to really walk away from this webinar with. Is an MGM will generally last 2 to 3 times as long as most of our competitors chambers. Okay. So if you think about that, and generally our chamber, yes, we might cost a little bit more up front. It will become cheaper after one additional chamber replacement. And that's usually just taking the cost of the chamber and labor into account. That's not taking, the downtime of the vehicle. If it was a road call and you had to pay for that to get it brought back to the shop for repairs or repairs along on the road. So those are all things that when you're looking at the true cost of something, or the value to a fleet, you need to look at things like that as well. MGMs are designed just for harsh environments. As you can tell when I was going through those components, everything that we do engineering wise, design wise for a brake chamber is how can we make this thing last longer? Okay. And the big one, made in the USA. Okay. I know that means a lot to a lot of people. And it's a big requirement in the transit industry. So remember MGM when you're thinking about products that are made in the USA. Why does this all matter? Well, first of all, to MGM, quality is priority number 1. All right. Longer life and durability means better for your fleets. More uptime, less downtime. And I just repeated myself, results in less downtime. Sorry about that. So that's pretty much what I have on brake chambers. Does anyone have any questions that I can answer for you?
So we did get a couple questions. One was on price. You did address price. You said pay now or pay more later. You talked about the true cost just a little bit ago.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what someone wanted to in comparison, the
Yeah.
price.
Yeah, and that's always the big question, and that's what I have to sell to everybody is, again, yes, MGM is a premium chamber. You're going to pay more for it, but by doing so, it's going to cost your fleet less in the long run, and that's the key, one of the key takeaways of shopping for brake chambers.
Mm-hmm. And then another question, just to confirm, made in the USA, does it meet the Buy America standard?
Absolutely.
America.
Yes, that absolutely meets the Buy American standards, and I believe we're the only brake chamber that will meet that Buy American standard, because all the other premium chambers out there are made either. Now, I guess is that a requirement North American, or is it American, like USA? I don't know that, but several of the premium chambers are made in Mexico. The rest of them are made overseas in Europe and China and so forth.
So if you
Made in the USA, Mark.
That's right, made in the USA.
yeah. Okay, this question didn't come in, and I'm not a transit technician, but I just got to ask. You mentioned the epoxy coated was good for salt trucks. Do you have recommendations? Can someone come? This is the application that we'd be using. Is that something that the KIRKS part specialist would be able to answer, or is it just no? This is the part number you need for this vehicle.
Yeah, we actually do have a chart available that kind of goes by the industry. It probably needs to be updated a little bit because we've got some newer products now. But yes, we did have a chart that would kind of go by industry and tell you what all the chambers are that were good series to use for that vocation. But again, MGM, so our epoxy coated. All of our chambers are epoxy coated on the power spring side and the MPC. The one chamber, the TRTS, completely epoxy coats. So it epoxy coats over the aluminum center section as well, which is already corrosion resistant. But it also is used on many of the internal components as well. Okay, so again, everything just keeping it from any type of acids and corrosives.
Okay. And then one last question. Don't know if you can promise this. If they come to visit you in Charlotte for tour, do you also have donuts?
I would say I can't guarantee that one, and you will not see me in Charlotte either. I'm based out of Michigan. I make it down to the headquarters very not very often, but the people at the headquarters we're very proud of our product, and they're always happy to talk with our customer base.
That's great. That was the wrap up for our questions. Mark, you've done a great job. It was a super informative webinar. Really appreciate it. And we would like to thank all of our webinar attendees as well. The recording of this webinar will be emailed to registrants. We'll have a QR code pop up on the screen, and you can scan that with your phone to sign up for our monthly KIRKS news. We're going to keep you up to date on everything transit, so you want to be getting that in your inbox. And also, we want to thank Mark Simpson and MGM Brakes for providing a wealth of valuable information. I learned a lot. I'm sure you did too. And we want to thank you for joining us. We want to keep you moving, navigate the parts landscape, and escape the parts trap, because KIRKS is your partner for parts. Thanks for joining us, and have a great day.
Thank you.